ECT Tech Nugget, Wi-Fi signal mapping. We're going to talk a little about Wi-Fi signal mapping. This is a concept that hasn't come up a ton in our curriculum, but it is something that a lot of people ask me for because it's a very interesting concept of signal strength. How does it work? Where does it go? Why can't I get signal in this part of my house but that part of my house? This is a very analog concept. Radio frequency, RF, it can be reflected by a lot of different pieces of material, properties, things that get in the way basically between the antenna and wherever you're trying to go. And so in many ways it can be sort of a game, right? RF's invisible, so it's very difficult to tell why I can't get signal here. I just know I don't. And one of two things often has to move. Either you have to move the source, like the Wi-Fi hotspot, or you have to move the receiver, me holding my tablet or my laptop or whatever, and that will change the characteristics of the RF that's reaching that spot. Now, to understand that at a larger enterprise way, where we've got buildings made out of concrete and steel and glass and all these other arguably more exotic materials than you might have in your home, we use enterprise tools to go about doing that so that we can understand signal strength in different places. What kind of signals, why is it we can get 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi here, but not 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi or 6 gigahertz Wi-Fi, and we can map that out to a floor plan. So very much a floor plan of a building, and we can represent it in what's called a heat map. So the stronger the signal, the closer we get to red, that would be hot. And the cooler the color, yellows, blues, greens, the less signal strength it's gonna have. And we can use, dBs to measure that signal strength, but we can also turn that into a heat map that will make it a little easier to visualize as we move along. And the way this works is we put out a floor plan of a building. This is a screenshot from a tablet that's running NetApp, and we give it a floor plan of a building, and it overlays a grid onto it. So we give it some concepts of scale, like how wide is that hallway? Well, we've measured it with a tape measure. We know the hallway there. This is a floor plan of the second floor of radio television building, and we know the hallway is 7 feet wide. I know because I put a tape measure on it. And we can give it a sense of scale, and from there, it'll put a grid on it. And we walk with the tablet from spot in the grid to spot in the grid to spot in the grid, having it take data. Each one of those little blue dots is a spot in the grid. You can't see the grid at the moment, where I stood for a moment or two, not very long, hit a button on the tablet that said, yes, take data, and I was able to walk in a circle, because it's a circular floor plan, and take data. And you can see I started in the lower left in my office, and I was able to sort of take data as I moved around the floor plan. And if we wanted a complete floor plan, we'd of course have to spread out to all the different corners of the building. Sometimes that's necessary, sometimes it's not. Can't always get into every space on a floor plan, so it's not always realistic. But we can get a pretty good feel for, I ought to have reasonably good signal strength here or there. If you've only got one source of signal, like in your home where you only have one Wi-Fi access point, it's probably going to fade from hot, standing right next to it, to cool the farther and farther away you get. What you may be able to do is measure things like, why don't I get any signal right here? Well, it turns out the furnace is in the way. Well, the furnace is a big metal thing. It's going to create a big shadow. So this kind of software is going to tell you those kinds of things. In our case, at the university, we can go up to the library in the stacks is what it's called, where all the books are. It turns out big metal shelves and lots of paper books are really good at blocking signal. So they have all sorts of access points up there to try to get Wi-Fi signal for student and faculty use when you're up in the stacks. And so these heat maps will look really interesting, because one aisle way will have lots of signal because there's nothing in the way between you and the access point. And the next aisle over, it'll be dead because there's this big wall of books and metal between you and the AP. And then you move over one more, and ta-da, they put up another access point, and there'll be great signals. So you can get these very interesting maps that go on. Knowing this kind of information, understanding the environment that you're in, and the RF you're in, is really important when we talk about RF. Let's go on to a practical demonstration. This is a screen recording of Android. We're going to use the NetApp app, which is down in the corner there with the big red arrow. We're going to click on it, and we're going to, start with some new heat maps. We're going to use an existing photo of a heat map. So this should be preloaded on your Android, ready to go. So we'll pull it up. We're going to select the floor plan for the floor plan you're using, give the project a name. We're going to, at this point, we need to set scale. So we're going to know the distance of two different spots, and we're going to set it. And you use the tape measure to do that. We're going to be able to set that on our floor plan. We can adjust it a little bit back and forth, and then we'll be able to click on the little arrow to set the distance. So if we know it's 7 feet, we're going to set it to 7 feet, and that'll set the scale. We're going to be able to pick a grid size that we want. Lots, big, little. It sort of depends on the scale of our map. We're going to pick medium because that's about right for the types of floor plans that we're using. At this point, it's going to give us an overview of what I'm looking at. And I'm going to move the map using my finger to my office. I'm going to start taking data points using the scan button. And we're going to move along, and we're going to rescale to a different square, and you'll have to move to that square to do that. So as we go along, we'll take more and more data. Every time it bings, it'll take another spot of data, and then I'll move a couple of feet and take some more data. This process is going to allow me to sample Wi-Fi signal strength, interference, all that kind of stuff, signal noise ratio data. It's going to sample all that kind of stuff as we go. And you can see I'm walking along. I move the map to where I think I am in the square. I hit the scan button. I take another. Now I'm going to take a bunch of data. I'm going to speed up time here a little bit so you can sort of see it in compressed. Once we finish taking data, we poke done, and then we poke Wi-Fi heat maps, which will generate the data in the heat map that we want to see. And there'll be some options down in the lower corner next to the signal level where we can change what we're seeing. And we'll poke that button here after we move the map around a little bit. We'll be able to see different options. So we can see signal strength and detections, and we can change the options for what we might want to see. At the moment, we're just going to leave it at the defaults. Going back to the map, I move my little person over the AP, and we can see a little about the AP that we're using. I'm going to click on the link, and it's going to give me a list of all the APs that it can see along with the signal levels that it receives from that spot. If I go and change my settings to signal interference ratio, it'll redraw the map with slightly different colors so I can see different information. That way I don't confuse one for the other. Same here with signal noise ratio. We want to see data from a specific SSID, so we're going to click the three dots and select Include Exclude Networks. And that's going to give us some options to hide things, stuff we don't want to see. So we really want to see OU's guest network. That's what we were looking at there. So we're going to go through and hide stuff. I'm going to kind of speed things up so we don't have to stare at a bunch of SSIDs. This is standing in the RTV building. There are a lot of SSIDs. So each one of those is an access point that NetApp saw. As we get back into NetApp, it's going to think about it a while. It's going to change the heat map based on just guest network things that it can see. And so it'll give different information because it's not trying to show everything. It's trying to show just that information for those things for the guest network that it saw. At some point, you're going to need to get data off this. We're going to have to screenshot, which is shown like this. Power button, lower volume button. Press them both at the same time and the screen will flash. And here's what it looks like on screen. Screenshot flash, and it'll move everything down in that lower corner. You want to click there to open up the screenshot. Then you want to click that greater than symbol looking thing in the corner to open up Gmail. That's going to be the share icon. We're going to go on and we're going to say I want Gmail, and it's going to open up Gmail, and it's going to mail us the screenshot. We're going to want to put your email address in. This is showing my email address. I want you to put your email address in here so that it emails it to you. You'll need it for your lab report, so you'll want to be able to put that kind of thing in there. So we add a recipient, and then we're going to give it a subject line, something hopefully useful, so when you see the email, it will make sense to you. And you can see lower down above the keyboard and below the subject line, you can see the screenshot's been attached there, so it's going to mail it to you. You know, I tend to type something that's descriptive, helpful, that kind of thing, as we go along. And eventually you're going to need to send that message, which is the little paper airplane looking thing in the upper right corner. You can see there, that's how we send the message. You hit send and it goes. I hope you enjoyed this Tech Nugget, and we'll see you for the next one.